Welcome to today's show. I'm William Wagner, your host, and sitting on my left is Angel. What's your whole name, Angel?
Angelia Bortz, Portland, Oregon.
And what just happened like in the last week or two that brings you all the way down to Santa Barbara County, California?
Actually, I had been dealing with Child Protective Services, and I had gone into court and had gotten my case dismissed. I had fought back and won.
You won. You fought back and won. So if you won, what went wrong?
I had the CASA report. I had the CASA report and a few other things. A lot of people had made assumptions about what might have gone wrong. Even the CASA felt that the caseworker, I can just read it from here?
Go ahead.
Okay, it says, the CASA is very concerned that the investigative caseworker appears to produce a biased report as she only included a few negative comments made by the teachers and doctors without including all the positive comments reported to her, and some claims were incorrectly reported. The caseworker reported extensive absences from school. By looking at the school record, it's clear that they were tardies and excused. There were no excessive absences. A lot of what she did, she just went in and she just looked for the negative, She just looked for the negative, any type of negative, and just fed on that and only reported that. So what we got here is her over-exaggerating any kind of issue. The kids' tardies, which were in-school tardies, so they were late from breakfast to getting to class. My daughter's size, she said it was failure to thrive. She had only lost...
Failure to thrive? Really? When did failure to thrive become a crime against we the people? I mean, really, they put that in the report, failure to thrive. Who's failing to thrive?
Supposedly, they said that my daughter was failure to thrive. Unfortunately, we're talking about a child that's very small. I'm 4'11", 5 foot, so she's kind of taken after me. And so she's on this small growth chart herself. So when she had dipped down 14 ounces, not even a pound, they diagnosed her with a failure to thrive. If it's a child that's lost a lot of weight or, is not really growing, it actually does mess with their brain development. But this is something that you have to progressively, track to actually diagnose it.
Interesting. So because your daughter's petite, that's the reason for CPS to get their nose in your business again.
Yeah. My daughter being petite, a lapse of health insurance, meaning that the health insurance had ended and I was supposed to renew it, and instead of just being able to run down to the local office to be able to do it, they had switched it all the way out to Salem, hours away from our home, so it wasn't that easy.
Wait a minute, who switched it? When you say they, who's they?
This is the state health insurance.
The state health insurance people. So you're under a government health insurance program,
Yeah.
and they switch the place you have to go to many hours away from where you live.
Yeah.
Do I understand that correct?
Yep.
Okay, now I got to take my hat off you people. I hope you're paying attention, people, because this could happen to you. It really could, and it's happening to thousands, if not millions, of people.
So, of course, with the lapse of health insurance, the attendance, and my daughter's short size, they said that was enough to remove my kids, but that wasn't all that they used to facilitate the removal of my kids. I'd had another case a few years back. The allegations that were from there, they had removed off of that petition and pasted it onto the new one. And that's even in the caseworker's notes. The allegations from before that I had fought and won in appeals were now on the new petition.
They just copied and pasted.
Yes, sir, they did.
From a document that you had prevailed on.
Yep.
And now made allegations a second time.
Yeah.
And what was the date of this?
The original allegations from before was in 2013,
Okay.
And so, of course, when they took me in March 3rd
Of 2015?
of 2015, those allegations from there, from 2013, through the appeals, were now on the new petition.
That doesn't sound cricket to me. It just sounds as if you've been set up. Let me ask a wild and crazy question. Were you by chance raised in a foster home and went through this when you were a child?
Yes, actually.
Oh my heavenly Lord. You know what this makes me think is they track you. Once you've been in the system, they wait for you to have kids and come after your kids. Do you get the feeling that that might be the case?
I've actually been able to see my records when they bring them in, and reviewing over it, even my lawyer, she's like, see, 17 times. 17 times they have repeatedly come back after me. Each time I've been able to just keep them at bay, you know, because there's nothing there. This time they, you know, were able to make up some pretty atrocious things or get just the right caseworker, but since foster care, 17 times now they've tried to come after me to try to get my kids. And now, I mean, I'm very concerned because now my children's name is on that record.
I don't blame you for being concerned. But you were raised through this system, and was it pleasant for you as a child?
No, it was very traumatizing. A lot of situations that happen in there, you have no one you can turn to. You don't know who you can trust. You're secluded away from everybody that you know. So, you know, writing letters to grandma or, you know, your cousins or calling somebody that you know for help is just, it's not there.
So did you have a grandmother when you were in the system?
But not one that I was allowed to contact.
You weren't allowed to contact her. At what age you were not allowed to contact your own biological grandmother?
Between 9 and 16.
Between 9 and 16, they would not let you talk to your own. Was she, you know, Machine Gun Bessie or something? Or
No, she was 700 Club Grandma.
700 Club Grandma. And they wouldn't let you, Angel, contact your 700 Club type grandmother from age 9 to 16. What happened at 16? They kick you out of the system, or you ran away, or what?
No, I had witnessed too much traumatic stuff. Still have some physical scars from foster care, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I ran away.
You ran away.
I ran away, and I was homeless on the street from 16 to 18.
And they couldn't find you?
No, I didn't want to be found. I did not want to be forced back into that.
She didn't go to Grandma's house? She didn't go back to Mom and Dad?
I called my mom sometimes, but I was afraid that they would, you know, put me back in there. I'd watch them medicate one girl, lock another girl away. You know, one of them just kind of disappeared. We didn't know what happened to her. Another girl got pregnant. I was afraid.
What was the girl's name that disappeared? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Did you ever come across a Melissa Gaston in the system?
I don't think so.
I mean, I know there's thousands in the system, but...
Yeah.
So, were you ever molested while you were a foster child?
I witnessed one of the girls being molested.
You witnessed one by who? By a foster dad, a foster mom, or one of the lawyers that came to visit?
Actually, it was the foster dad's brother.
The foster dad's brother molested one of the other girls.
She reported it. They called her a liar. They told us all in there that to not pay any attention to her. They gave her more medication, more therapy.
So she's made to feel helpless.
Yeah, and...
So foster care is a way to make your child feel like you're just,
You have
there's
no
no
voice.
hope.
You have no voice.
You have no voice.
You're
There's
in
no
prison.
help. You're in a prison. You can't see your mom and dad. What did you do, or what did your mom and dad do to have you taken away?
For me, it was something that my stepdad had done.
Oh, a stepdad.
He had molested me, and I stood up to him. I said, you know, this isn't okay. And I had run away from that situation, and I had asked Child Protective Services for help. I said, you know, I want to find something healthier for myself. And instead, you know, what I ended up was with abuse, no contact to my family, not my brothers, you know, not my aunts, cousins, anybody.
Were you and your brothers like kind of okay before you were taken
friends.
away?
Best friends.
Best friends, you and
Yeah.
your brother.
Yeah.
And then you were just suddenly nothing.
It was suddenly nothing, and then, you know, even when I did run away at 16 and I finally got to see my younger brother, who was, you know, for me, it was, I protected him, so he was like my baby to me. So when I finally got to see him, he was a stranger to me.
Wow. A stranger. Your own younger brother becomes a stranger to you. How much younger was he?
2 years.
2 years. So you were how old when you went into the system?
9.
9, and he was 7. And you didn't see him again till he was 16 or so?
I was 16, so he was 14.
He was 14. What happened to the stepfather? He stayed married to your mom?
He went to jail for what he'd done, got back out. Later on, mind you, he got out well before I got out of foster care, which really frustrated me. He
Now
went on to...
say that again, because I think people need to hear this. You end up in foster care to get away from a molesting stepfather, which is why I always say to women, if you get divorced, don't get a boyfriend, don't get a stepdad for your kids. Don't think a stepdad is going to just come in and be the perfect dad. I'm not saying they don't happen, and there are some, but I think it's really highly risky because that's not his daughter. The feeling isn't quite the same, I think, as when it's his own daughter. But do moms listen to me? No, they don't listen to me. Anyway, get back to your story.
Okay, well, what you wanted me to repeat was he had gotten out of jail before I was released from.
So you were in
before I ran
prison
away.
longer,
Yeah.
in foster care, and witnessing molestation, witnessing other young girls being denied any justice and made to feel helpless, and you yourself were being abused, physically abused, psychologically abused, or both?
Physically, emotionally, mentally, all the above. It was neglect as well because, you know, there was certain chores that needed to be done. There was the biological children that were there that you had to accommodate for. And if you didn't, you know, do all that you were told to do, then you got, you know, no food or, you know, you had to go to bed early, secluded into your room for days at a time. So it was a whole bunch of things. The fact that I never went to the doctors or the dentist the whole time that I was there wasn't even a part of them just punishing me. They just didn't do their job as a parent.
The foster parents didn't do their job in Portland.
Yeah.
This was how long ago?
It was in Oregon City.
Oregon City. This was how long ago?
Oh, about
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Larry Lawson, I think, was head of CPS then in Portland. You ever hear that name, Larry Lawson? I'll never forget Larry Lawson because he's in Hazel Spee's letter where she writes to him, and I don't want to digress very long, but you can see this letter from Hazel Spees is reading her own letter at the trial where she's a witness against Wilbur Gaston. And what Hazel Spees did is take a video camera, videotape Wilbur's 7-year-old daughter that the kidnappers, the CPS social worker / kidnappers, had grabbed his 7-year-old daughter, was doing fine with Wilbur for 18 months. She had stopped screaming once she was out of foster care and she was with her dad. He got her in school. She's going to kindergarten. She's going to, and they grab her, and Hazel Spees makes her strip naked, masturbate herself while she's being videotaped. And Hazel Spees is a first grade school teacher in Oregon 20 years ago. Well, 15, 18 years ago. Now she's retired and she got a pension. Why didn't Hazel Spees go to prison? So at that time, Hazel Spees is reading this letter. She wrote a letter to Larry Lawson. And I have a copy of that letter. I have a copy of a lot of documents. And she's saying, well, dear Larry, I would like a letter excluding me from any harm or prosecution because it feels like I'm making kiddie porn. Duh! You take a 7-year-old girl, you put on some music, tell her to dance and masturbate, rub yourself where it feels good. That's kiddie porn.
Yeah.
Whether it's grandma doing it, a first grade school teacher, what kind of credentials do they need to be a school teacher? Apparently not very high moral standards. Anyway, they made her the first foster parent for Melissa Gaston. And she makes the kiddie porn. That's how little you can trust. And I've been up there, and you can see my interviews. this is about Angel's case, not about him. But I just bring it up because Larry Lawson was there supervising at the same time you were in the system. He didn't care about you. He didn't care about any of you. So there's Hazel reading the letter, and what she didn't understand is that Pamela Gaston, who is not the biological mother of Melissa, and Wilbur Gaston were using her letter against her. She thought she was justifying what she did. And it's on the court video. And guess who got the court video? And it's up there. It's got, I don't know, 60,000 views or 100,000 views. I think my interview has 100,000. The court video has 60,000. So I'm not a stranger to Oregon or Larry Lawson and these criminals up there. And, you know, I talked to moms and children up there that had grown up through the system, and they said exactly the same. When you're in foster care, you have no voice. You can be raped at house B. You complain, they move you to house C.
Or medicate you.
And medicate you. And if you tell the other kids that you've been raped at the last place, they heavily medicate you. This one girl was literally drooling.
Or they tell you
Drooling. She'd been medicated so hard.
what one of the girls in our group counseling was told was that her story was too disturbing for the other kids who hadn't really gone through that much or that kind of abuse. So she was requested not to talk about it. It was the same thing I was told.
Yeah, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. You're being molested and raped, abused, starved, beaten, and you're not supposed to talk about it. That's what your children face if they're taking into foster care. Maybe 1 in 10 gets lucky and gets into a really good Christian home where they're the only foster child and they get taken really well care of. And most of them that take in foster kids, they're there for the what?
Money.
The money.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't take her to the dentist.
Nope.
They didn't take her to get a teeth checkup even.
No doctors, no dentists.
No doctors, no dentists. Just give me the money. We'll feed her mush until she's out of the system. And one of the most troubling things to me when I was in Salem, I think it was Salem, is seeing all these kids at 18 hanging around the downtown courthouse and buildings because they didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
Once you're out of the
Had anywhere
system,
to go.
foster parent didn't get paid anymore. You're out, kid. Last day. Here's your garbage bag with your stuff. Is that how it kind of goes?
If you're lucky. If you're lucky. Sometimes it's, we purchase this stuff, and, you know, it stays here with us. So
Oh my God.
yeah, you sometimes have absolutely nothing. The only thing that I have from foster care is a single picture of me. That was the only thing I left foster care with.
Wow.
So that's, you know, all those
So
memories.
did you regret ever reporting what your stepdad did? I mean, because he was out of jail before you were out of foster care. Did you ever sit and think, oh, I should have just let him molest me and I should have just kept my mouth shut and not said anything? Or...
You know, the worst thing, the hardest part was, when he was doing what he did, he said, if you tell anybody, you'll lose your whole family. And
he was right.
thanks to the system and the way they run, he was right. And what's worse is he got out to repeat it again to someone else.
He repeated it after
Yeah.
he got out of prison?
After he got out, he abused another girl, and he's back in prison again, and he will get out in 2022.
So he didn't learn even from the first jaunt in prison.
And they didn't rescue anybody.
And they didn't rescue you. They didn't rescue anybody. And it still
But they
goes
collected
on.
money.
Do you know what? Do you want to say his name?
Oh, yeah, Danny Paul Winden. Oh, God.
Danny?
Danny Paul Winden, yep.
Danny Paul
I
Winden.
posted his picture. I am so concerned that he will get out and repeat it again. He's been abusive while in prison to other people. So
Is his mugshot available from the jail up there in...
Yeah, I posted it before on my Facebook page.
You did?
Oh, God, yeah.
What's your Facebook page?
Mad Angel or Angela Aborts.
Mad Angel. So if they put in Mad Angel,
Yep, I will pop.
it'll come up. Well, we're here with Angel Bortz. it's exactly 8 years since I was on the East Coast interviewing moms and dads. And I heard the same story in Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., up and down the coast. I was traveling, interviewing people, and we have some of them. But I want to get back to your story, because I think it's going to take more time. So Danny,
Danny, yeah.
boy, is back in prison till 2022 for molesting another girl who was how old, 14 or 15?
She was around 13 or 12, something like that, when he first moved in with the...
But it was not with your mother.
No.
It was some other family again. Was he a CPS social worker doing his regular work?
No.
Well, I got to ask, because we have over 100 of them that have gone to prison.
Oh, yeah,
that
I
we
believe
know
it.
of.
I believe it.
I mean, that we actually know and can document. Over 100 social workers have gone to prison that I know of in 40-some different states. There could be 1,000 of them going to prison. Pedophiles seem to be attracted to be scoutmasters and social workers.
And the drivers and the counselors and the mentors, and the list goes on and on. It is a pedophile playground. Foster care and child protective services there's no one who oversees them, and they have all this power and all this secrecy, and so it's so easy for them to just get in there. I clean record, I'm a nice person, and so easy to get a hold of those kids and just do whatever they want to, and there's no one that can stop them.
Now, this is mostly about your daughter. Do we have a shot of your daughter? Your daughter's name is what?
April.
April. Is that April right there on the screen?
Yes.
And how old is that picture?
That was just before she got taken away.
This past March of
Yeah.
2015.
Yep.
And their excuse now is her failure to thrive because she lost, 10 or 12, 14 ounces?
14 ounces, yep.
And you're petite and she's petite. And so that's an excuse because she lost 14. Were you starving her at home, forbidding her to eat food because you're trying to stretch the budget or something?
No, actually, we have a lot of food in our house. That was one of the things that the doctor had asked her, if there was enough food in the house. And I tried to show the doctor a picture because we kind of cram the fridge. We're lucky enough to be able to do that. And she kind of keeps her own little inventory of what's going on, little control issue girl. But, there was plenty of food. The doctor didn't like the fact that my kids said they like broccoli and green beans. She felt it was coached. So that was one of her things that made her feel concerned. One of the reasons why I had to have supervised visits with my kids.
You have to have supervised visits with your own children.
Like I was a danger to my children because they thought that my children were coached or coerced to say certain things around authority because they said they like broccoli and green beans.
Oregon is a state, people, in case you don't know it. Oregon is the state where this attorney tried to defend this vegetarian family. I don't know if you remember, this was like 10, 12 years ago. Vegetarian family, homeschooled, they traveled the country on a bus. They stopped, I forget if it was Salem or Portland. And while they're at the library, the mom and the kids are in the bus. And dad goes into the library to do something on the internet. And the bus is parked out there, and people go by and see these very thin kids. Someone called CPS. They come and grab the kids. So these kids are being starved because you're living on a bus. No, they had pounds of food, veggies stacked up in boxes. But they were vegetarians, strict. They didn't even eat fish. So they were healthy as healthy could be. They were just thin. And the lawyer that went to defend them got on the internet, got on the social media, what little there was 10, 12, 15 years ago, whenever it was. And he said, please, somebody help. This is crazy. The judge is crazy here in Oregon. Would you agree with that?
Oh, God, yeah.
She agrees with that. She's not even an attorney. And here's this lawyer screaming for help. And I'm thinking, God, it's a long way for me to run with my camera, and no one's going to pay my bills. And this family obviously can't pay my bill. So I didn't go up. Years later, Angel, I meet the same guy. that had been to the lawyer. The kids got taken away. The parents kidnapped their children back at gunpoint, which I think was the right thing to do because they were being abused in foster care in Oregon. And they were later caught, and the kids, I think, one of the kids got shipped back to a grandmother in England, one went to a grandmother in Texas someplace, and the mom and dad did jail time. But they did no crime until they were pushed to the breaking point. And my gut feeling, Angel, tell me if you agree, what they lacked was a Cleveland Bundy type militia to show up 100 guys with guns and say, give them back the kids or die now.
Yeah.
Now, if Cleveland Bundy can scream out, I need help, they've kidnapped my cattle.
Thank you.
To me, you're not just a cowboy, you're a true American.
Well,
You know,
thank you.
out of all those guys that gave up their ranches and left, you hung out to the end till the militia showed up. And this guy deserves an applause, if for nothing else, for that.
Well, thank you.
Tell him what you want to tell. Talk about the sheriff not doing his job.
Okay. We give them a limited power, a little corner of America that we give the federal government. The rest of us, we the people in our states retained all of those rights. Here I am ranching on a Nevada desert. I have snipers up on top of my hills, around my hills, and guess who they're pointing their guns at? They all have their guns pointed at my chest. Why? Because I said no, and I didn't only say no to them, I said hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no, hell no. Our Heavenly Father wanted us to have our agency, and that's what our Constitution gave us.
And they've destroyed our watering system on land that have a right to graze on, public land. And 200 militia show up with powerful guns. He gets his cattle back. Shouldn't we have a militia to help parents get their children back?
Yes.
I mean, aren't children more valuable than cattle?
Unfortunately, we have this system that, in my opinion, they say, we're here to help children, we're here to save children. And it's these false, advertisement, in my opinion. They're not really helping children, but people have heard this and had this pushed down their throat for so long that they really believe it. So when a mom like me says, they took my daughter because they said she's too short, they're like, oh no, there's got to be something else.
There's something else, right?
You've got to have done something wrong. And obviously, the case was dismissed. There was nothing there.
And that was 2013. You won the case.
On July 22nd, I had won and got the kids back.
The same day or the next day?
The same day.
Same day.
Yeah.
July 22nd, 2013.
This month, or this year.
Oh, this year you got them
Yes,
back.
I got them back. So they were taken March, and I got them back.
And you have them now?
Yes. Yeah.
So who is the asshole? I mean, the mentally delinquent social worker for Child Protective Services, which up there I think you call DCCF?
DHS.
DHS. They keep changing the name, so I can't, because each one gets a dirty reputation, so they change the name again. So who was the dirty bum who took them this time? Who pushed the button?
The rookie that came out to my house to do the, investigating. I get it. She was pregnant, maybe. She hasn't had her own kids or something. So she really didn't understand it when she said, well, your house is messy because there's fingerprints on the walls and stains on the carpet. But
Oh, my.
I really don't believe that it was solely that woman. There
was somebody behind her.
There was a caseworker from a couple of years ago that had done some really atrocious things to my children, and I reported her.
You want to tell us what the atrocious things
Oh
were?
my God.
Tell us now!
Okay, so there was no allegations of physical abuse, sexual abuse, or anything like that to my kids. This woman takes my kids privately, doesn't tell anybody, not the guardian, not the foster parent, nobody. Takes them in privately to have them sexually probed without anyone to watch over this. So my kids are stripped down naked, down on the table, do the thing. They bring my kids back and don't tell anybody anything. My little 6-year-old daughter, a week later, turns to her 13-year-old sister and says, they touched me. They touched me on the outside and they touched me on the inside. And my 13-year-old daughter came to me and told me. And I came unglued. I I called up the caseworker. I was like, who the hell do you think you are? I called up her supervisor. I,
Why didn't you
rented the
call the
rape.
sheriff and have them arrested?
When you're dealing with them, you don't know
Who to trust?
besides who to trust, because they'll say, well, it's within our legal limits to do these things.
To touch your children internally.
They can rip your kids away for nothing, so you have no idea what your rights are. They can rip your kids away for nothing, so you have no idea what your rights are, and they won't tell you.
What was the month they did this to your children?
Oh, I can't even remember. This was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And how long after they did it to your children did you find out that they did it?
A week later.
A week later. Don't they have a duty to tell you they did something to your children?
As the supervisor said, that's not normally how parents find out what happened, and we apologize.
We apologize.
That was all I got.
Really? What was that asshole? I mean, what was that supervisor's name?
I have it written down, but I didn't bring it with me. It's together on this image that I posted.
She works where? At what office?
The Midtown branch, DHS office, Portland, Oregon.
Which is on what street?
I don't remember exactly which street, but it's the Midtown branch, so it's
Isn't it
the
on
only
front
one.
of here, on your paperwork?
It might be. No, it just. They try to keep all
So
that
she
out of here.
apologized. Did you ask her to apologize with like $100,000 in cash to me to apologize for
I
what you
wanted
did?
the caseworker gone. I wanted her removed.
Well,
I wrote a
did you
complaint.
sue?
I had no one out here, and I didn't know how.
Do you want to
do
know
it.
how to sue?
I'm learning how to do it now, but back then I didn't know.
There's a book coming out. Dennis Schoenke's got a book out, but I think there's a book coming out from a Christian printing place in Florida called crownoakpress.com. And he's going to lay out a formula. This is how you sue. This is how you collect it. Forget all the details of the issue. There's just one big issue you catch them on, and then they can't admit what they've done, and then you go for damages and they pay you money. It's coming out soon, I think in 2 weeks. I wish it was out, but I'm going to see that you get some help. I'm going to try and see that you get some help. You need to collect for each child at least $100,000 for that child's being molested by, what do you call them?
DHS.
DHS of Oregon. I mean, this is the same place where they did, Melissa Gaston in, where they murdered another 15-year-old. I've got about 10 or 12 cases I have never published, but their mothers gave me the story when I was up in Oregon. So you didn't find out for a week after the government authorities had molested your children, trying to determine if they had been molested. Does that sound crazy? Am I the only one that thinks that's crazy? And they do that here. They do that here. In fact, in Santa Barbara, I can't mention the names because it's privacy. But 2 children in Child Protective Services in this county died in their care, and the parents have not been notified. The biological parents still don't know. Their children are not living happily somewhere in some foster home. They're dead. And it makes me angry. And up in Oregon, when I was up there in 2008, there was this little black boy who just had nobody to speak for him. And they kept drugging him down till he was just drooling. And nobody tested how much drugs he was retaining. And he OD'd. And they said, we don't know why he died. He just saw the doctor and just got some more medicine last week. He died. Then they shredded. And I've got it on tape. One of the social workers was so upset. She came to me and said, I'll probably get fired. Don't publish this right away. But they shredded little so-and-so's records. So now the kid doesn't exist. He's not even in the system.
They do that a lot, actually. I've seen a lot of cases where kids have been overdosed or killed, and it's kept private from major media.
Well.
So it's easier for them to just close up the records, seal it up, They say that a certain amount of time they're able to just shred up the documents and
Yeah,
don't have
after
to.
a while, nothing comes up. We shred the documents. Never happened.
Yep.
Don't know that kid. And then that social worker retires, gets promoted, moves on. Kid's dead. Parents think their kid's living happily somewhere in a foster home, or they're hoping and praying. No, the kid's dead. And we can't talk about it. This is why, I went up to Sacramento 2 years ago. A guy named Tim Donnelly was running for governor. Remember him?
Yes.
And he
Oh my
spoke
God, yeah.
out for the parents.
Yes, we did.
And they had a meeting, and I went in and taped that meeting. Our state senator from Santa Barbara was there, and they said, "Are we going to vote to audit CPS?" And they, had about, 20 or 30 cases. Each one only had like 2 minutes to talk about how horrible CPS had screwed their kids up. And when they got all done, they said, "Now we're going to vote to audit CPS." What happened to the audit, Angel?
No idea. Nothing
Never
has even
happened.
come out of it.
Tim Donnelly did not win the governorship. Didn't even get close. Then he lost the seat he did hold in the state legislature. And all the people that voted to audit quietly unaudited. So no audit happened. There's been no audit, despite kids being killed in the system, kids being molested in the system, and some of the molesters being promoted. But what really makes me angry is your last attorney general. Your attorney general of Oregon, who came to this meeting. We have tape of the meeting. And he brings his right-hand guy. "Oh, we're going to investigate. And I call him up a week later, a month later, 5 months, 6 months later. I said, how's it going? "Oh, we're still investigating." There was no investigation. They just listened to you and they said, "Okay, they're not going to sue. We can go on doing." And what I found out in Oregon, lawyers, both male and female lawyers, go to homes and they call it professional day. Did you ever hear that term when you were in foster home, professional day? Mm-mm. Where a lawyer comes to the foster home, grabs one of you and says, "Come on, kid, I'm going to show you how the courthouse works." Well, you were lucky.
Very.
You were lucky because they'd take these kids out, run them through the courthouse, have them sit and say, "This is how it's working." And the judge comes out and meet the judge, have your picture taken with the judge, see the system's good, kid, it all works fine. And then they take them to a motel and they rape them. Whether they're 12 years old, 14-year-old. Lawyers in Oregon were doing this. And in one case, social workers were doing it to one of the foster kids. And the girl was screaming so loud in the hotel because these lesbian social workers were using a double dildo and raping and causing internal damage on this, I think, 13-year-old girl. She was screaming. And the hotel manager came and knocked on the door and said, "Please be quiet. We're social workers. Shut up and leave us alone." So somebody called the police. The cops came up the steps. It was on the second floor of the motel. And they told the cops, "If you don't get out of here, we're going to visit your home and we're going to take your kids." That's what they told the cop. And I talked to that cop. And I said, "Will you go on tape?" He says, No, I don't want to.
I'm so scared.
Don't want to make any waves here. I said, "So you were there at that hotel?" "Yeah, I was there, but I didn't know anybody died." I said, "How would you know? You didn't go in and see what they were doing." I said, "Well, there was two of us, and my buddy had rank on me, and he said, we better just leave him alone."
Wow.
And the girl bled to death. Records got shredded, and that's the end of it. And then, I was staying up there one night. Michael Warnken was with me. So I got a witness to this, besides having a lot of tape that I've never published. And the mom came in, and she told me this horrible story. How by the time she saw her daughter, again, years later, she'd been raped so many times, the daughter just said, "Fuck you, Mom. I don't want anything to do with you, Mom. I'm going my own way now." And they literally not just destroyed the parent-child relationship. As you saw what happened to Mad Angel here. She went through the system and found out the guy that molested her got out of jail before she got out of foster care. The social worker said, "Well, we had to protect Angel."
They also make it to where, because I wasn't really able to talk to my mom, not call her on the phone, not see her, no real visits or anything. I thought she didn't want to see me. I didn't know she was in court fighting just to be able to have any kind of time with me. They don't tell you that. So, I thought she just didn't want me. And
Exactly.
so it made me angry. It made me, feel like I wasn't important.
Yeah, that's what they do to you. We'll do the slideshow, but so you ran away at 16. You survived on your own. I imagine by the time you were 18, you weren't a virgin anymore.
No.
And the molestation your stepfather gave you seemed minor compared to what you experienced
In foster care, yeah.
in foster care. So, given a choice, letting your stepfather molest you or going to foster care, which is worse?
Foster care was worse.
Foster care was worse. Sad, sad, but true. Foster care is worse than being molested by your own stepfather.
At least at home, I had someone I could turn to that I could talk to, that I thought maybe could help me. But in foster care, there was no one for me to turn to.
Say that again.
At home, at least I had someone
mom.
to turn to. My mom, my grandma, my teachers. Someone that I could trust that if I turned to and said something, that they would care enough to do something. But in foster care, it didn't matter who I turned to. It was, we're going to tell the caseworker. We're going to report this to the caseworker. It all went back to the caseworker who didn't do anything. She didn't do her job.
Caseworker failed the job. Well, we have those kids out in Riverside. Was it 10, 15 years ago? Kept writing reports that they saw the kids are fine and healthy.
Oh, yeah.
And she never went and looked at them.
Yeah.
And finally, the neighbors called because the dogs were screaming next door. And the police came to stop the dogs from screaming. It wasn't dogs, it was the children tied up by chains in a shed behind the house, practically naked. The 15-year-old girl weighed, what, 40 pounds? 15-year-old girl weighed 40 pounds. And they were howling like dogs because they were hungry, while the foster parents had gone off to go bowling, go see a movie, and forgot to feed them. Anyway, this is the slideshow of her daughter. What's your daughter's name?
My daughter, April, this is actually my kid. So this is TJ, JT. That's the three of them together. JT with me. It was just kind of a quick little slideshow that was put together in
And that's on
dedication.
Mad Angel?
Mad Angel's journey to bring my kids home. It was a page dedicated to my family and my kids. Thousands of supporters shared my story. Medical Kidnapped went ahead and did an article. We got over 23,000 shares. Everybody, I got a lot of support from people. A lot of people were really, flabbergasted. I don't know what else to use. That they could use such minuscule things that are just normal, day-to-day things as just a short-sized kid to kidnap children.
I know the kid fell out of a tree and broke the arm, and CPS took the kid. It took them 2 years to get their child back, and it turned out the child had brittle bones. Oh, that's a cute picture. So, in foster care, the kid suffered 2 more fractures. One was from the foster mom hitting him, knocking the kid to the ground, and the other one was the foster parents' real biological children beat up the kid and broke another limb. So, foster care really isn't a solution, It really isn't. Orphanages, I think, sometimes, and we talk about how terrible orphanages were, foster care is just money-making deal for the foster parents. They can't function to work a real job. Go ahead.
I actually document a lot of it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
have on Facebook and Pinterest, because I can keep it in better little categories.
Right.
I have one category for foster care abuse. So if it's a child that's been abused and it's made it to, the major media, whether or not it's a lawsuit by a foster child, whether it's a foster parent that's been arrested. So each category, and there's like hundreds and hundreds of articles in each one of these, caseworkers being arrested. And I just started categorizing it, and I put them, up on Facebook,
Good.
just to make sure, just to show people that it's not just, it's just happening once here, it's just happening once there. It is happening a lot. And foster care is just this ugly prison for kids just to be abused. And it's just not the solution. When you take the kid away from parents, say, who let their kid walk home by themselves at an age that the government didn't feel was appropriate, and you put them in foster care, and the ending result is, being raped and murdered and suffering real abuse, how does this justify this? You know, the father who smoked weed after his child went to sleep, he admitted to it. His daughter was put into foster care 2 weeks before she was supposed to be reunited with him. She was murdered by the foster parent.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no balance there, and there's no study to nothing showing that foster care is really creating successful adults, productive adults. As they age out, we got 54% of them become homeless. There's, 68% of kids that are picked up from sex trafficking are from the foster care system. Only 2% of these kids go on to graduate, into higher, college or anything else like that. There's 68% of these girls are pregnant before the age of 19 that are in foster care. There's nothing.
Some of them are pregnant before they get out of foster care.
Oh, God, yeah. And they're taking the kids away from the moms that are in the foster care,
it's a racket,
separating
it's a
them.
business.
These kids are either going from the drug because they're so overly medicated and then they get just thrown out. And they're so used to those drugs. That's the solution to life. That's how I cope. Get high. And so they go out and they become druggies and they become homeless. Or they've been through so much that they're so angry, they get out and they just go to prison. And that's the two pipelines that we've got going on.
So we're creating more business for the government jailers.
Yeah, we're just
Foster
creating
care is a fast track to prison for kids that had something happen to them that shouldn't have happened. To me, your statement that you would have been better off to let your stepfather molest you
Which
than
is
to
a horrible
complain
thing, yeah.
and go into foster care. Because what you saw and experienced in foster care was worse than what your stepfather did to you. Even though he went to jail, he was out of jail before you got out of foster care. And you only got out because you ran away. Mm-hmm. I mean, that says a lot to me. I don't know about you people, but when somebody like Angel, at 16, she decides to run away from foster care because it's worse than living homeless on the street.
Yeah.
And, it remind me of this young man. I was down in Hollywood refueling to come back to Santa Maria. And this young man comes in and asks for money. I says, well, don't you have a home? He says, yeah, I ran out of foster home and I'm not going back. And I said, well, won't they have food for there? Nah, I ain't going back. This kid was was a young man, about 15. And I didn't know what to tell him. I really didn't. I gave him $1 and said, here, get yourself a burger. You could get a burger for $1 then. And that was the first time I realized how bad foster care is. He's a 15-year-old boy in one of the nastiest parts of LA, Hollywood. And he was panhandling to get something to eat because he would not go back to foster care. And I came home and I just hugged all my children. I was just so glad, I had all my children and they were in a home and I knew where they were and I knew they were safe.
Even if foster care is not abusive, though, they're not allowed to be children in foster care. What you get is they're so busy trying to keep these kids hidden, out of everybody's sight, so the parents can't find them, so people can't see what's going on. They're not allowed to go and, go out on weekend trips. They're not allowed to have slumber parties. They can't go hang out at the mall, so their entire life, their entire childhood is being robbed away from them for their own salvation.
Terrible. Terrible. And you pay for it. You may not think you pay for it, but how it works is they have matching federal funding. There's Title 4D money, and there's all kinds of federal matching money. And you think, well, it's not my money, it's matching money. But what happens is they just print the presses, and that devalues your savings. It devalues the value of your income. So your money buys less and less and less. So it does affect you. Even if in your household everything's perfect and everything's going just fine. But what happened to the dad? We haven't even mentioned the father of your 2 kids. When did he drop out of the picture?
The 3 kids.
I'm sorry, you have 3.
We have 3 together. He and I had separated
2 years ago.
a couple of years ago. There's a bit of a catch to this. See, we had been together, and I couldn't really live with him anymore, and so I had asked him to leave. Well, then DHS got involved, and they said, well, no, you can't do that. You have to let him back in your home. So I didn't understand, the laws or anything. It was court ordered, so I let him move back in. Well, then he tested positive for drugs, so they told me I had to kick him out. So I kicked him out. Then they tell me that they were concerned about the home environment. So they took the kids from me and gave them to Dad. So this really, the whole thing caused a bigger rift between us than was really necessary. And even with this case, where they yanked the kids away from me, and we were both terrified of them just ending up in foster care. That is the worst thing.
Okay.
For me, I was...
So where's your dad now?
My dad? Or the
Not
kids'?
your dad.
The kids' dad. So the kids' dad actually lives nearby. We have shared parenting.
And you didn't have to go through court to get that, or did you?
Because of Child Protective Services.
Kept sticking their nose in
Sticking their
it.
nose in. It was, we ripped the kids away from her, we gave them to you. If you want to keep them, then you have to file for full custody.
Trying to get you two to fight.
Yeah, it creates more and more animosity, and it, if I didn't talk to him and communicate with him, I would assume that was something he instigated.
Okay, so when you had the kids, you didn't stop him from coming to see the kids as long as he was sober and not high on something. Mm-hmm. And things were pretty well working out.
Yeah, we had it.
Then CPS got involved, and things didn't work out. And then they forced you back into the court system to get a court order of some kind. But right now, you got all three of your kids, and he's not in jail, and he can come see the kids when he needs to.
We actually are still doing shared parenting, so...
Good.
Because he works during the day, so I get him during the day, and then he gets them at night, and then we alternate weekends, just for the summertime, until they go back to school. But it gives the kids a chance to really get to spend the, adequate amount of time with each one of us.
So what do you think will happen in 10 years if we don't disable this system? If we don't cut the guts out of it so it can stop harming children, what do you think is going to happen?
We won't have any more family roots.
No one will have any. Do you even know
No.
who your biological father is?
I know who my biological father is, yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
No. I mean, not in a good way. He was not so great a guy, but...
So your mom didn't pick good the first time out of the can.
No.
Then the second time she picked a stepfather that molested you.
Mm-hmm.
Not so good. And I imagine she divorced him when he went to prison.
They were never married. Luckily.
Oh, they were never
So,
married.
Yeah, luckily my stepdad. So.
Oh,
And then
so-
now she's been with this last guy for 25 years. So he's not so bad.
When I think about your case, you were a foster child. You were in the system. I think they were tracking you. Because you ran away at 16, they're pissed. They weren't able to collect money from you. Or maybe they did, and they didn't report that you had ran away. I don't know.
I actually am quite curious, and I would love to be able to find out this. A lot of these children are missing, and you got to understand, there's no missing report.
Yeah,
So
that's...
they don't
file
report it at
missing
all.
reports if they
so no
disappear.
one knows. Yeah, no one knows. And so obviously they still have that opportunity, the foster parents and Child Protective Services, to collect that money. There have been foster parents that have gone to jail for that fraud because the child had been dead for years.
And they kept
And
taking the
yeah.
money and never reported it.
Yep.
And I think that's what happened with these. They were holding the kids like dogs in a shed out in Riverside, and literally treating them like dogs, feeding them, throwing the food in the shed. Here's a bun, eat this bread. Just throwing it at them, and they lived like kings and queens in the house, but the kids were out in a shed.
Yeah.
And if they had not been gone so long that day, and the kids just howled for pain of hunger, and the neighbors called because they thought it was dogs howling. Dogs were being tortured. It wasn't dogs. It was foster children. Sure, the couple went to jail, but can you undo the damage that was done to those kids? I mean, think of a foster child chained with a chain in a shed. Both little girls and little boys in a shed. And it gets pretty hot out in Riverside in the summer.
Yeah.
It gets pretty hot. So, Do you think you're going to have any more bouts with CPS? They're going to leave you alone now, or?
I think I'm going to try to find a way to either help them understand that what they're doing is not okay,
I think you need to sue the caseworker.
Yeah.
Both the original one.
I think that's the bigger step that I'm going
I
to
think
do,
you,
because
you
I
must
need,
sue the SOB.
because I can't get them to understand that they're going too far. The trauma they cause my children just over the short sight, I mean, is so detrimental to them. They're afraid, they're insecure, they're afraid that at any given moment, if they make a mess, that they're going to get taken away. And that's not fair to them. They're being robbed of their childhood. And so I need to take back my children's childhood for them.
Yeah.
So I need to step on some toes, step on them in return to get them to stop.
I think, I'll stay in touch with you because when this book comes out, I'm going to read it and I'm going to get it to you. This guy's name is Eugene. He's out of Chicago. And even though the woman that wrote the book is dead now, it's a good book. Eugene is going to get it published. It's coming out in 2 weeks. And when I've read it, I'll contact you. He has the formula. No matter how old your case is, doesn't matter how far back it's been. You can go back. You can file certain things, prove there was fraud in the court way back, and the fraud just opens up Pandora's box, and you can rip their testicles off and say, what's the matter? You're complaining I'm ripping your testicles off? Well, you took my kids and you had no legal lawful right. I like that idea, just ripping, Of course, some of those social workers aren't male, but they act like they're males. We need to rip something out of them, too. But, yeah, you need to sue them. And I think the laws have to be changed. And I'm going to give you one other solution. Do you know 25 people?
I know more than 25 people, yeah.
Do you think you could get 25 people to come together, take an oath of office, sign the oath of office, I agree to serve as a grand juror of such and such a county, and get it notarized and file it with the county clerk? Do you have 25 people in your county you could do that with?
We have over 300 signatures right now for our
Okay.
petition to have jury trials for parents.
Can you get 25 of them to sign a grand jury oath of office?
Possibly.
Okay? So if you get 25 of them, and I'm going to tell you, there's a case, it's called U.S. versus Williams. The citation is a Supreme Court citation. It's 504, if you can find that, Steve, and flash it again. 504 U.S. 36. It's U.S. versus Williams. Under that case, a 1992 case, which I didn't know about 2 years ago. And this is back in 1992, and I only learned just recently. Any 25 people can form their own grand jury. You do not have to be appointed by a judge, a county leader, a president, anybody in government. It's completely outside of government. That's the idea of the grand jury. There it is, 50 right there. 504 U.S. 36. Look it up, people. Read it. It's by Justice Scalia in a 6-3 decision. They say, we the people. See these guys up here above me? We the people. That's Angela. That's her 300 friends. They can form their own grand jury. Take evidence, record the evidence on an electronic device, vote on it, and you can indict the caseworker. Criminally indict them for kidnapping, for fraud, for misprision of felony. There's a whole list of things you can go after them for. And it only takes 25 of you. Actually, you could do it with 23 and have 2 more just in case somebody drops out. But they look at the evidence. And they don't have to do this for 6 months like most grand juries. They could do it, say it's a special grand jury for Matt Angel. But only you can't be on it if you're going to testify.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a witness testifying, you can't be on the same grand jury. But then you take some of those other 300 people, ask them to go buy a gun. Learn how to use the gun. After the grand jury says, yep, we find that social worker Schmuck and Judge Super Schmuck did X, Y, and Z felonies, we hereby return a true bill of indictment, and that's how it's worded, a true bill of indictment against Schmuck Supervisor Schmuck, Judge Super Schmuck, and whatever the names, you list them down, and you say, here, Sheriff, you got 24 hours to arrest these people and put them in jail. And if you don't, Sheriff, we're going to our militia. And that's why you need those other people that buy guns, and 100 of them say, we're going to arrest Judge Schmuck, Judge Super Schmuck, Caseworker Schmuck. You know what schmuck is, don't you? That's a nasty word. It's a Hebrew, Yiddish word. It's the part of the circumcision you throw away.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's the worstless piece.
That's the definition of it.
Okay, well, I'd asked a Jew once. He kept calling this judge a schmuck, and I said, "Why? What's a schmuck?" He said, "Schmuck, schmuck." You don't know what. So I had him tell me what a schmuck was. I had to learn from a Jew because I didn't know it. It's actually a Yiddish term. So,
Pleasant.
yeah, you indict the schmuck, schmuck A, schmuck B, schmuck C, and you go to the sheriff and you say, our jury that is duly authorized because we have notarized affidavits of our oath of office. We have convened. We have taken the evidence. Mad Angel was mistreated, and now it's time she gets justice for the forced molestation, which they called examination, of her children, which she didn't even have knowledge of. Did you ever sign a paper that said they could do that?
No.
Then they had no right to touch your children. And I encourage you people to do it. Form your own grand juries. And if some don't want to be in the grand jury, but they got a rifle and a gun, let them be on your county militia. And the militia can be just like Cleveland Bundy. He just got on a talk show and said, hey, they're stealing my cattle. The BLM is stealing my cattle at Bunkerville here. And everybody, I think, you've seen those videos, right? The Bunkerville under I-15, where they're literally pointing guns at the BLM with their SWAT team and the cowboys, and they're pointing the guns back at them. And when the militia outnumbered the 200 BLM, the BLM Dee Dee Mao, I mean, they hauled ass. They just, we're gone, we're out of here, here's your cattle back, sorry, we're out of here. And you know what that federal judge's order was worth? Schmuck. They took a Las Vegas federal judge's order and they just said, rip, 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 your order's nothing. The militia just canceled your order. The militia represents, I think I'm going to hear the music coming up again that we started with, and we're at the end of our show. Anything you wanted to say yet?
Well, yeah, actually, when you were talking about me getting my justice, the whole reason that I fought so hard was because I'm out to get my children justice for what they've been through. So that's what, for me to go after them or continue or anything else, it's not just for myself, it's for their sanity, for their justice. So for them, I can fight harder than I could for myself.
Wow. Do it.
Oh, yeah.
Mad Angel, stay mad and get even in a smart way. But do it right. Get your own grand jury, take some of those 300 people and say, if you seriously want to do something to change America for the better, to heal the deep wounds, I hope you do it. Okay, well, I'm William Wagner with Mad Angel, also known as
Angelia Bortz.
Angelia Bortz, putting on my white hat. Thank you for being with us for this episode of On Second Thought, just like it says with that.
Thank you.
And we thank everybody for watching. Thank you very much. See you next week.
My goodness. Patterns. We're talking about patterns today. And this pattern that we had in the past has followed us to now.